stuff. That was good stuff. That was good stuff. That was good. Take this down a couple levels here. I like a little background music on here. That way I don't feel like I'm alone. Welcome. Ziggy No back. Third night in a row. New internet is awesome. I have to say, I'm super excited with it. I'm able to stream almost, I think maybe it's life changing. Anyway, I wanted to come on tonight. I've listened to a lot of content. I listen to a lot of content. I do that. I listened to some great content today from Ken over at Sports Card Lessons. I do encourage you to check him out if you haven't already. He's been podcasting, video, YouTube stuff for years now. And I've just enjoyed his perspective, his honesty. And I mean by perspectives, he tells you what he's doing. He's very real. He's doing stuff. He participates in the hobby. He's not pontificating or witnessing from the sideline. He's actually out there. He's a dealer. He gets very involved. I've always tried to speak to him or meet him in person. I have not. I hope one day I do get to meet him. One thing he said, so here's my point. He was talking about getting in breaks. First, let me say, I think a lot more people are into breaks than you realize. I think a lot of people are in breaks. Like I think I'm going to go ahead and say 50% of the hobby participates in breaks. Only 10% talks about it positively. And of the 50% that participate, 90% of them like to bitch about anything negative in it. Like as soon as something goes bad, they're like, breaking sucks. It's just a gamble. It's a risk. I'll come back to that later on. But anyway, Ken was telling some great stories about how he was basically, and this is very logical to me. This is why I know I'm not alone. I know Ken is like many of us out there. He's like, I wanted to get into some of the NBA Select, WNBA Select, and I didn't want to go buy boxes. And I thought I'd get in some breaks. So he did some research. He was on, and here's the thing, he was on Whatnot. I don't use Whatnot. I've used Whatnot a little bit. I have a few friends that I know have Whatnot, so I have used them on Whatnot, but I don't randomly choose Whatnot. My biggest reason for that is I feel like Whatnot will let anybody be on there. Right? Like you can be a kitchen breaker and be on there. I'm not trying to be mean to the kitchen breaker community. What I mean by that is your business could be something small enough where you could just quit one day. You could be planning to quit at the end of the month. And between now and the end of the month, plan an exit strategy that might screw a lot of people on the way out. You see what I'm saying? Like there's no skin in the game, in my opinion, on the Whatnot businesses. Loop, by the other hand, the only way to be on Loop is you have to have a brick and mortar. You have to have some place that owns the relationship. That gives me as a consumer more confidence to be on a platform like Loop over Whatnot. Same thing with what I'd say is Fanatics Live. Fanatics Live, I have confidence, although I wonder, no, I'm just kidding. No, I have confidence in Fanatics Live because they have vetted their breakers. There is a neck to choke if the person you're trying to get after does not. Now I know people say Whatnot's similar. I'll just say this. His experience was of Whatnot. Now, here's what Ken said that I want to get to the point that I thought was very funny. Ken was in a break, and they were doing bidding back and forth on spots. And he said he did not want the other guy to get the spots for less, so he bid him up. Let me just say that again. It's him and another guy, right? And they're bidding on spots for team break, box break. I don't know. I think it was a single box break of Select. And as teams came available, Ken just didn't want the other guy to get a cheap team for like $18. He wanted to pay more, so he bid him up. I understand. I totally understand. In fact, why I pause and talk about that is so many different feelings come to play here. Look, as a participant in breaks, that would fucking piss me off. If some guy's deliberately bidding me up just because he wanted me to pay more, oh, I'd be furious. As a participant in breaks, I understand. Sometimes I want to bid the motherfuckers up because I want them to use their budget so they can't get in breaks and I'm competing with to get those better teams. I totally fucking understand that too. You see what I'm saying? Like, I understand both sides of that coin. I understand that's a dick thing to do. I understand why you are a dick to other people in that bidding scenario. I totally get that. Here's the other kicker. I understand what the breaker's thinking. It just blew my mind to hear him say that. Another thing he brought up, he discussed chasers in breaking. It's something I want to do a conversation on, or maybe kind of a history of breaking that I think is very important. The biggest change that really has taken place since COVID was how we really have gamified breaking. Gamified breaking, what I mean by that, before COVID, Breaking was very simple. You were spending money to get a part of the box or the case. Oftentimes, the market value or the market price was very public, right? If you're buying into a $300 box, there's a $300 box. If you kind of manage the price of the teams, if you add them up, probably came around 330, maybe 390, maybe 440, 450. But my point was the margin on that was relatively low because most time the guy doing the break had some allocated margin in there as well. So he's breaking it at almost market cost. Right, back in the day, here's nothing. Back in the day, way back in 2019, if the team's checklist sucked, they didn't get a spot. Like you wouldn't always have 30 teams in a random or a PYT. Maybe there was 28 teams, right? Because the team had no players or no autographs or whatever. Like that shit used to actually happen. People used to analyze the checklist and the market price because here's what you were selling back then. As a breaker, I was competing for your business, Mr. Consumer. So I wanted you to come buy my break. I wanted you to look. Buying in the break is the same as if you went to the store and you wanted to buy a case, you could buy a full case, or you can buy a couple teams in the same model, a case here, right? So if a case is $3,000 at the store, for $3,000, my break, you can get a couple teams, right? That was the old way. During COVID, something happened. I think our ethical, what am I looking for? We just decided to fuck everybody over to make money. That's the way I look at it. We really did. We just decided if you can make money, it didn't make a damn bit of difference. So we used a lot of camouflage and tricks, what we call it, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, smoke and mirrors, to manipulate people. Like I go back to, I want to say it was Daps, who I'm not a fan of Daps' content or Daps himself. Sorry, Daps. Hope to meet you someday. We can maybe talk that out, but I think you're just. Depp said that he was able to mark retail up so much he was able to make $75,000 in like one night breaking. Now again, I understand that. Again, part of that was people had such a high demand for the product, but it also was the ignorant buyer and the ability to hide what the person was buying. Right? Here's my point to that. Listening tonight to Ken talk, he talked about chasers, and I really think the hobby's gotten to the point. I thought it was somebody else posted something about some other gamification. I think we've lost sight of what we really want to do in sports card breaking. Let me also say this too: not all breakers are the same. Just because one breaker is doing some weird gamified, model of chasings and wheels and auctions and whatever, does not mean all breakers do that. Right? There are a lot of places. Here's what I love about breaking: you can go getting breaks from any different flavor, from any different size, from your friends to a Facebook group to a community to a bunch of guys that you might know, that you might not even know, somebody in a foreign country. Break anywhere you want to, whatever you want to. It's not all the same, although we're very quick to just blame breakers for everything, right? So listening to Ken, it just made me think that overall, we really need to educate the community on what breaking is. And I know everybody's like, well, everybody knows what breaking is. No, they don't. They don't know what breaking is. And I think if we did more education on breaking, we'd have more transparency in breaking. We'd have more competition in breaking. Remember I said earlier about, I understand why someone's bidding up somebody else because you want them to pay more so they have less budget to go after in the next box. You're chasing a case hit or whatever that might be. It's a competitive market. Like I said it last night, I think it was, every time a case is broken in breaking, it's like a table was set at a poker room, right? And hands are going to be played out during that break. And you don't know how they're going to be played. Now, here's the difference. Once the teams are set, the randoms are made, there's not much that changes what happens. The box is laid down and the cards are being opened. There's no magic. The breaker can't manifest anything. It's already been determined, right? You can't bluff in sports cards. But it is similar in the competitive nature that somebody's probably going to win at the table and somebody's probably going to lose at that table. And yet we all cheer for them. We're also all kind of cheering against them. Hope that makes sense. Going back to my marketing idea, I think we need to flip the script, right? Flip the script away from the attention on the breaker and put more attention on the person buying into the breaks. I'm going to call them the chaser for right now. I don't like the term chaser, but it works, right? I think I said this earlier. I think they should be called the breaker, but the chaser. I think we need to reverse that script, put attention on that person. Here's what I was thinking about yesterday. If I could do a commercial, this is my last thought for the night. If there are any questions or comments, let me know. Oh, I do see some comments. People are in there. What's up, Anthony? Well, that could be a hit or miss. I agree. It absolutely can be. In fact, one thing that Ken talked about in his video was you can go in a whatnot room and there's so much competition, you're not going to get the spot. You're going to pay $200 for a spot. There's too much bidding. It's just not worth it. It's a frenzy. You go in another room where there's just you and some other guy, you're getting deals all night long. And I'll also say this too. Ken went on and talked about breaking being the host versus you. You're playing against the host. I don't feel that at all. You should not feel that way about breaking. I really mean that, and that's sad that he thinks of that, and that shows you how warped the hobby's gotten with sports card breaking. I believe I'm going to go back to one of my favorite breakers, Pete. Pete would basically, here's Pete's model. He had allocation. Dude, I get product. I'm going to price it as cheap as I can for you guys to buy into it, but I got to make some money to pay my bills so I can get you more product open, right? So I'm going to mark it up a little bit, but I'm going to make it very affordable. So he had a very affordable break. And then he'd open the product with you. He only had a limited amount. Hey, only going to get one case of Prism this year, guys. You guys ready? I'm going to drop it on this week. In order to get in, I need you guys to buy my Donruss from me first. I need you to buy my hoops. But he had a plan, and you would buy in his breaks. Why? Because his breaks were cheap. They would fill up. And you know what the other thing was? He was honest with you. You weren't you versus him, right? You were not getting against the host. Pete was not against you. Just like the dealer in poker is not against you. He's just dealing the card. I'm sorry. Not the dealer in poker. The dealer in blackjack, he's just dealing the cards. The breakers just open the boxes. They're not against you, right? What you should be looking at is, what am I paying for this break? And is it fair? Is it fair market value? Is it fair odds? Is it statistically a good chance if I'm spending X dollars to get a team that has a crap checklist, that statistically odds of hitting any cards or cards of value is low, then maybe the cost should be low. That's what we need to, in my opinion, be thinking about. A little off topic there. Let me go back to flipping this script and a commercial idea I have for sports card breaking. Because this is what kind of got me into sports card breaking. Divorced dad, and my kids were really big into sports cards. And I think first it was Excalibur was really the first card we got into breaks on. They liked Excalibur. So I think I found Excalibur on, I want to say Steel City or Dave and Adams. And this way I could buy teams. I think we were buying the Warriors around this time, because I think my sons like the Warriors and the, who was Katie on? The Thunder. So we buy those two teams, and we would either watch the breaks live together, right? My sons would be at home, and they'd be on the internet, on their YouTube channels, or I would be at my office or home, and we would be texting each other while we're watching the break. Hey, did you see that hit? Oh my goodness, was that cool? What are our teams, Dad? So we would interact through the break. This was huge for me as a divorced dad. And I'll also say this too, looking back, I don't know if this is the best things that got my kids into breaking, got them to like sports cards. Now today, none of them like sports cards, and none of them are actively involved. They're aware of it, but they see it as they don't see it as a collectible. They see it as a business. And I think that's because the way they saw it through breaking. But my point is, going back to this breaking story, is that no other sports hobby lets you do that. No other hobby ability. You can't both open a pack unless you have a break. Right? Breaking lets you share in that experience from a global experience, right? So you can do it as a team, a group. So I'll close on this, and I've been babbling here a little bit. It's late. That's how long I've been going here. About 15 minutes, a little longer than I like to. But my point here is that there is such an opportunity to properly sportify, gamify, dare I say glorify breaking in a positive way. There's a lot that needs to be done. And I ask you, yes, it's gambling. It's no different than poker. It's no different than fishing. Right? It's no different than a lot of things that people have turned into some type of competitive sport. Video games, right? Video games are a hobby that have become a lucrative hobby, that are competitive. I think breaking has the same potential. I'm going to keep preaching that. I'm reaching out to other people to talk about it. I think more needs to be done. Again, getting that, flip the script, put it on the people buying the brakes. Let's talk about the people buying the brakes. Why are they doing it? How are they doing it? And are they doing well? Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate you being here. Probably be back tomorrow night, man. I'm enjoying this. I don't know. We'll talk about tomorrow night. Well, we'll see. Monday night, right? Monday night football.